Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters. It is Monday night, which means it's the Holly and Steve show, not the Steve and Holly show. So I better do that and move Holly onto that side because people keep saying it's the Holly and Steve show. I'm just the support act on a Monday. So you made a good impression, Holly, with the viewers anyway.
Yeah, that's glad. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad people are enjoying the show. I found it quite funny when you changed the show title. I seen that this morning.
I've got to change the flyer, that's all. But yeah, I'm quite happy with that, Holly. 100%. But here we are. It's the week leading up to the start of the season, and exciting times as big news broke yesterday that Newcastle and Arsenal have finally agreed on a £25 million fee for Joel Willock. Obviously, personal terms yet to be agreed with the player. That is the next stage. But exciting news all the same, Holly.
Definitely is. I was really getting concerned about that deal. I think a few people were, because the longer it was being dragged out, we constantly heard he was in Newcastle, he's not in Newcastle. There was just so many different stories. I was always confident that he was going to come, because I think the chance of being a star player at Newcastle is a lot more appealing than just sitting on the bench and not being given a chance at Arsenal, which is what would have happened. So I think he's definitely made the right choice. 25 million, it's quite a lot. We've certainly gambled a bit there, and we're just hoping that he can carry on the same form that he did at the end of last season. But if he does, he's worth a hell of a lot more than 25 million, because he did basically keep us up towards the end of the season, and he'll do the same again if he scores those goals.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's great to have a new signing. I mean, we've had nothing at all, and that's been the big worry. And we've seen players leaving, obviously players who didn't feature and probably wouldn't have featured this term, clearing the wage bill up. But to see Willock come back in, albeit now on a permanent deal as opposed to a loan deal, I think that's great. And I think a lot of people would have settled for not letting any of the star players go under this current regime and signing Willock. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. And I think ASM is probably the player that most people, he's the favourite player, because he always comes on the pitch, makes a huge impact. And I think that'll definitely keep ASM happy that Joel Willock signed, because he did previously say that he wants Willock to sign for the club, and he's 100% right with that. So it's a smart move by the club, definitely. One which I think was difficult and I wasn't expecting to happen, especially with the price tag and on a permanent deal. But it's a really good bit of business for Newcastle. So I'm more than happy with Joel Willock signing. I did say at one point, if that's the only signing we made, then I'd be pretty happy. And to be honest, I am, because I think it's been such a rubbish window that now that we've got Willock, it's certainly looking a lot more brighter going into the new season.
Tom Dixon's asking, with Willock, the deal closed, he says, do you expect anyone else coming through the door, Holly?
I think we've got a good chance to get a couple more loan deals, but no one on a permanent transfer, I don't think. There is some good loan deals out there. I know there's quite a few Premier League loan deals, but I'm not expecting us to kind of get those. I don't think, there's obviously the likes of Abraham and stuff. I know there's a lot of interest in him, but I don't think, we'll be able to get anyone like that. But in the foreign loan market, definitely. I know Willems is available. It's not looking like the club's going to go for him. For what reason, I do not know, because I think he'd be a great bit of business for us as well. And then, like we've mentioned before, there's Rondon as well, who I think would be good to do that job, because we need a second striker, but I can't see him coming in either, purely because it was Rafa's player. And I think Bruce is a bit too arrogant to kind of take Rondon on.
Simon Cox says he saw someone say today Rondon might have signed a new contract. I haven't seen that or heard that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. And I would agree with you, Holly. I can't see Rondon coming back under this particular manager, man. And again, I don't really think this manager has a great deal to say on who comes in. He might create a list, as every manager has done under Mike Ashley, but it doesn't mean that list is going to have any attention paid to it by the powers that be. And I guess signing Willock is from the owner's perspective is a big outlay of cash if he's still intending to sell the football club, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think it certainly makes sense, because he does need to protect the football club from being relegated, to kind of save his assets so that he can go on to sell it for the price that he wants, the price that he's asking for, 350 million. So yeah, it does make sense that he spent that amount of money, but to be honest, I really wasn't expecting it to happen, because at one point certainly I wouldn't have expected it to happen, because it's not really, he didn't want the club anymore, he wanted to sell it, and then we want the new owners to invest. But now that obviously the takeover is being pushed back and we won't get an answer for quite a while yet, I think Mike Ashley's realised that he is going to have to actually step up as an owner and protect the football club from basically relegation, because we do have a more weakened side now than we did last season, and we still struggled.
Okay, a question from Ryan Sweeney says, are Holly and Steve in the give us a wave Bruce camp or not? Well, I think what Ryan's trying to get out here is the song that was echoing around St James's Park from the Gallagher corner was Brucey, Brucey, give us a wave. It got an airing twice. We heard it in a couple of the pre-season friendlies away as well. I've got to be perfectly honest, it's not one I'd join in at. And look, you know, the guy went over to the food bank, and Steve Hasty will probably go into this in more depth on Friday night show, the Fab Four. He gave up some of his time pre-match to, you know, collect some money for the food bank, to have a chat with the guys down there. And by all accounts, he's got a good sense of humour. Look, I'm not going to get on his case. We can't do anything about that situation at the moment. My personal feeling, the slate is wiped clean from last year. We just crack on and wait and see whether anything can happen as regards to takeover, whether it's the one we've talked about for 15 months or whether another one comes in. If not, we've just got to get on with it. We've got to accept that Steve Bruce is the manager, and we've got to accept this is the team that we're going into the new season with. As a supporter, you have a choice. You either go to the games and pay your season ticket, or you pay match per match, whatever you want to do. You don't go to home games and you just go to away games if you can get tickets, or you don't go at all. If you're in the ground, my advice will be to support the lads, the team, because the team need the support, and they need it more than ever when, you know, the squad isn't, you know, big enough or strong enough if there's injuries to get through a season. And they didn't have the 12th man last season. They didn't have the backing of St James's Park's crowd. And whether that's 52,000, whether it's 42,000, whether it's 32,000, who knows what the average attendance is going to be this season. But one would imagine it is going to be around the 42 to 44,000 mark again for some of the bigger games, and we might get bigger crowds. But ultimately, getting on Steve Bruce's back and getting on the players' back isn't going to help them. And that's not what supporters do. So my advice is, if you're not happy, don't go. And, you know, it's a hard decision to make if that's your team. But, you know, if you're going to go, get behind the lads, because the team need our support. Holly, what's your view on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think Newcastle fans are going to be all of a sudden singing Bruce's praises or anything like that, obviously, because there is, you know, history there. He's not the most liked person. However, I think it's important that we do, like, not necessarily support him, but even just don't get on his back, because if we just get on to Steve Bruce's back straight away from the offset, you're not even giving him a chance, because he could go into the season and do well. You never know. Yes, it's probably unlikely, but you've got to give someone a chance, you know. And if we go in with all this negativity, all it's going to do is make it 10 times harder for us to win games and go on a good run, which just makes it more difficult to stay up. And it's just kind of defeating the object of what we want to do. So kind of just ignore Steve Bruce and just focus on praising the team, getting behind them, and trying to get us to win matches, because that is what's going to end up being the best for the football club, not shouting at Bruce, shouting at Ashley, because I think we know by now, no matter what we do, these people aren't going to go away. They're here and they're here to stay, and we've just got to accept that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, shouting at Bruce, at least it gets the vocal cords warmed up. Like, I suppose that's what the way that some people look at it. But shouting at Ashley is something I think a lot more people will probably do. And look, Bruce deserves, as I say, for me, you know, he just deserves that clean slate at the start of the season, and let's judge him after the first couple of months. So, you know, well done. I mean, it was great to see him go to the food bank, Holly.
Yeah, it was. That's something that I think is really important for Steve Bruce, to try and improve the connection he has to Newcastle supporters by doing things like going to the food bank, doing a bit of charity work, speaking to supporters outside the ground. And I think it was very well received, which is fantastic. And I hope he continues to do things like that throughout the season, because I think that can only be a positive thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it was good as well pre-match to bump into people like Kenny, Lely, Spenny Mag. We saw a few faces, some who we've met before, some who we haven't. So it was nice to meet Dom as well, and you know, bump into people at the game as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's lovely to put faces to names, sort of thing, because we've obviously done these podcasts and stuff throughout lockdown, and then seeing people in person, it's really, really nice to do that now that restrictions are off.
Roger's asking, is the post about West Ham offering more wedge, just usual Horlicks? I've got no idea what that means, Roger. Whether West Ham have offered some extra money for Willock, I would imagine you're talking about. I've not heard anything about that, but the deal is done between Newcastle and Arsenal, and it's quite clear that Willock would like to come here. So I would imagine it's just a case of settling the personal terms. Cliff says, great signing. Hopefully we can bring in at least another 3. That is wishful thinking, Cliff. I really think. Paul Oxley says, I can't see Willock scoring like he did last season. 7 in a row. I'd be happy if he got 7 over the full season. I mean, is there more pressure on him now coming as a permanent signing, Holly?
I think there could be, and I think if he doesn't get off to that start and start scoring goals straight away, I think there might be a few supporters that do get on his back, because I know that it's easy to do that because you think we've spent 25 million on him, we're expecting him to score these goals and he doesn't, and I know people will be annoyed at that, but I think you've got to give him time to get into the side. Don't judge players straight away, because I think a lot of people have a habit of doing that, jumping on their back straight away. They have one bad game and there's hell on. So I think just give him the time to settle into the team and stuff. And it's a lot of pressure for a 19-year-old to step up from Arsenal. It's a big decision that he has made, to leave his boyhood club down south, come up north to Newcastle, in a team that's got a totally different kind of ambition to what Arsenal do. Arsenal want to be challenging, we're fighting to stay up. So just try and give him that support and give him a chance if things don't go well straight away.
Yeah, I would agree. Paul Oxley also says, I can see the long staff's going. Sean possibly on a permanent. Of course, Everton's been linked, and Matty out on loan. I watched Sean on Sunday. It probably wasn't on Saturday. It wasn't his best game at the weekend, got to say. How would you feel about those two going? Do you think they should be given a chance? Would you like to see them go and maybe free up a little bit of budget to bring in somebody else?
I think it's time to let them go now. I think the Longstaffs did have potential, and I think that there is a player in there, specifically Matty. I think he has got a chance to do pretty well in the game, but at Newcastle currently, under current circumstances with Steve Bruce as manager, I just don't think it's a good fit. And unfortunately, I don't think no matter how good they are in training or off the pitch, I just don't think they're going to be given the chance that they deserve. So for them and Newcastle, it's probably best to let them go and bring someone else in, because we have brought Joel Willock in, but we do still need some backup in that midfield. And I know Shelby had a really great game as well against Norwich, but yet again, he's not going to keep that consistency. He'll have one good game and then 10 bad ones. So we can't rely on him.
Kel Watts as well, off to Wigan, season-long loan. I've been very impressed with him in the pre-season, I've got to be honest. Wigan clearly upset that the Mackems managed to beat them at the weekend, so decided to sign a rising star. But is that a good move for Kel Watts, do you think? Chance for him to learn his trade at a lower level?
It is a good move for him. I think it's important that young players do get good loan spells, get a lot of game time, so that they can progress as better players and work their way up the leagues to the very top. But I do think that I would have liked to have seen Kellen Watts stay this season, to be honest, because like you said, he did really impress in pre-season, and I think certainly on the bench even, I think he could have been given a chance this season. And the defence, it hasn't been the best at times. I think Kellen Watts really could have been given a chance, but I'm a bit disappointed to see him go, to be honest, but I hope that he does well, and then maybe he can come back next year and do a job.
Yeah, I think going to lower league clubs, and a season-long loan, it's a good chance for him to learn his craft. I think he'll learn massively from that, and I've got high hopes for him in a black and white shirt. Tom Dixon says, what's your thoughts on Dwight Gale? Do you think Bruce might give him a chance this season with him scoring 2 goals at the weekend? I mean, the 2 goals he scored, he took well. I mean, I think that the fortunes changed in the game in the second half. First half was quite boring. They looked 2 fairly level teams. Norwich probably just looked the better team in the first half. Although the second half, of course, Shelby came on, ASM came on, and Newcastle cruised it really in the second half. And Norwich looked devoid of all ideas. And I think Norwich will struggle again this season. What do I think about Dwight Gale? Took his chances well, but he's took his chances well before in front of Steve Bruce and not got a look in. I mean, I think it was Supermac on Saturday talking about Jacob Murphy whipping the ball in, Dwight Gale scoring an absolute pearl of a header, and then he never got a look in again. So from my perspective, I just think that you're looking at it and going, Dwight Gale, could play 2 seconds. I'm getting a phone call on me computer. Sorry, folks, this is rather annoying. 2 seconds. So Dwight Gale coming in, as far as my views are concerned, is that he's going to play second fiddle to Callum Wilson, and he's not going to get much of a look in unless Callum Wilson's injured. And obviously, there's no Andy Carroll there now. As we know, Bruce feels that Joe Linton, ASM, Miggy Almiron, Callum Wilson, and Dwight Gale are our forwards. I guess it's just which order Bruce sees them in. I think Almiron is suffering at the moment in this particular setup. I don't think he benefits from the formation that Bruce is playing. What do you think, Ollie?
I think Almiron's went very much unnoticed in pre-season. He hasn't done a great deal. Again, I think the formation doesn't suit him. He's not really being included in the game very much. Most times you don't even realise he is playing whatsoever. I think I can count on one hand how many times I've seen him on the ball in the past few games. It is a shame because I think Almiron's a player that tries very hard. He's got pace and he's probably one of the better players, but just he's not seeming to click in this kind of system with this team that we're currently playing. Dwight Gale, he has had a good run of form, especially at the end of not last season but the season before. He did well. He's played well in that game, and Bruce always said that he was a player that he wanted to sign when he was at previous clubs in the Championship. So I don't know why he's not giving him that chance. I'd like to see him giving him a chance. But I think the worry for Steve Bruce is if he drops Wilson and plays Gale and then Gale has a bad game, he'll get so much stick for that because obviously it's an unpopular decision because Wilson's a favourite and I can understand that. But I think you've got to give him a chance because he's done more in the last game than Wilson has done because I think Wilson struggled a little bit.
Yeah, Twister Man says Willock is the player's choice. Everything I've read suggests they love the guy and what he brings to the team. So that's one in the bag, almost. Let's hope Bruce can get a couple of good Premier League loans. Yeah, let's hope so. Sean says that people are arguing on Twitter about whether or not Willock is at St James's Park having photos taken. People are arguing on Twitter. You're joking. Bede says, Stephen Ollie, do you think there is any truth in Benitez wanting Sean Longstaff? I would say yes. Because I think Sean Longstaff is a Benitez kind of player. And I think Benitez will get the best out of him. And I think a move for Sean Longstaff would probably benefit him now rather than it would have a couple of years ago. I think if Benitez had stayed, Longstaff would have progressed, would have been a much better player, the player we all expected to be, despite him having to come back from that bad injury. I don't think he's going to progress under Steve Bruce. I don't think he's Steve Bruce's kind of player. Holly?
Yeah, I think there could be some truth in Benitez wanting to sign him for Everton because it was his player. He brought him into the side. He broke into the first team in Rafa's final season with us and he was really good and I think Rafa was massively impressed with him. Unfortunately, he did get that injury. He's never been quite the same, but I think if he's got any chance, it will be elsewhere, not at Newcastle.
Okay, Alan Thompson says, Holly and Steve, what do you think of the shocking financial figures given out by the club in regard to furloughing staff and especially commercial revenue? 2007, 26 million, 2021, 27 million, 14 years apart. What a disgrace. I haven't had time to go through the figures as such. Obviously saw the figure that would been concluded as debt, which I think would made a £22.5 million loss. I think that was what they recorded, something in the region of that. I don't think you can ever read a great deal into the figures that are presented. I think that there are ways and means of doing it, books and accounting, and I just think, we never really know the legacy of Mike Ashley's ownership of Newcastle United until he leaves the club. We can all say, well, that's not a good year, that's not a bad year. What do we actually know? We won't know the damage or the good that he's done until he leaves. At the moment, we're in a much better financial situation than some of the bigger clubs in the top six in the cartel. You look at Manchester United. I think I mentioned this last week. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer spent £400 million on players in his first 3 years at Manchester United. I think Manchester United must be around about £1 billion or hedging towards £1 billion in the red. Chelsea will owe a lot of money out and so on and so forth. So Newcastle only owe Mike Ashley the loan and it's interest free. And from my perspective, I guess we just judge him when he goes. I haven't looked at the accounts. I couldn't give too much of a say on what the rest of it means and says, but I will have a look at it, and I'm sure that might get discussed on Friday night. Holly, what's your views on that? Do you pay much attention to it or not?
Not really, no, because I think we can all see that Newcastle isn't being ran well, and that's all that you kind of need to know. I saw that we had the lowest spend for like infrastructure, like 200 grand, I think it was. But again, would you expect anything different? No, it's evident that there's nothing being done to the club. So, the kind of information that comes out doesn't really surprise as much.
Sutty says it's great we have Willock in, however, we're no better off than last season. We're a couple of injuries away from being in trouble. At least we also got rid of some of the deadwood. I mean, yeah, he's right, isn't he, with what he says there. We are really just standing still with bringing in Willock.
Yeah, we are. But it's still better than what you could have expected maybe a few weeks ago. I think Willock coming in is still a massively positive move for the football club going forward, because if he hadn't have been brought in, then we would have been in an even worse position still. I think it's good that we've cleared out some of the dead wood, like's been said, because those players that just sat on the bench took money that they didn't really deserve. So I'm happy to see that those players have gone. But yeah, we are standing still. We'll probably finish between 12th and 14th yet again. But as long as we're not kind of getting relegated, I'm still happy, because that's the kind of mindset we've got to be in these days. Until we get new ownership, we're just stuck.
Yeah, did Bruce make a donation while he was at the food bank, says Kenny. Steve Hasty will give us a full report of what it was like to meet Steve Bruce again. Because, of course, Steve Hasty met Brucey while he was out walking his dog in Jesmond. So there wasn't much crack then, but I believe there was a bit of conversation. So I'm sure Steve will fill us in on Friday. Lily, good evening. She says, thought ASM's reaction to the fans was priceless. What do you guys think? Of course, the fans singing his name, and he reacted accordingly, didn't he? And he's post-match interview as well, he seemed to be delighted, and I've seen a few of his social media posts as well. He's delighted to still be here, which has got to be a bit of a confidence boost for everybody as well, who feared he may leave in the pre-season.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were worried about him leaving because the future did look rather bleak, and the fact that he was so happy, of course, like he gave the fans a round of applause. He posted on social media about like how much he appreciates the support that he's getting. It's great to see that, and I'm glad that St. Maximin's still happy at the team, because we do need him here. He's the only player that we've got that can really change a game, and he's always someone that can get people excited when the game's been pretty boring.
Yep, I would agree. Get on Brucey's back, but leave the players alone, says Trolls. Again, let the kids start with a clean slate. Let Steve Bruce start with a clean slate and see where we go. It's not his fault. I do personally feel he was brought in really as a short-term manager, because Ashley intended on selling the club, and he would just leave the departure of Bruce to the new owners, and of course that hasn't happened. So maybe he's a manager who, again, maybe he thought he was going to be here short term as well, but he's not. He's here, and we've just got to put up with it. Talk that we're going into holding again, says Stuart Lawrence. Of course, he was a target from Arsenal last season. I've got to be honest, when I did see him play, I wasn't too keen on him. I would rather have the Man United player that we missed out on, who's now gone to Villa.
Yeah, same. I wasn't really too impressed by him. Of course, I wouldn't say no to him, because I think we do need some more players in, but I can't see us getting him, to be honest. I don't think it'll happen.
Bede says, I know we should get behind the team this year, definitely, but how would you feel, Stephen Holly, if Bruce was rewarded with a 3 to 5 year contract if the takeover doesn't go through? I wouldn't be happy if Steve Bruce was offered a 5-year deal. I guess depending on how Steve Bruce performs this season, then would I object to him being offered a 1-year extension? Depending on what his contract is, there's a lot of confusion over this contract. Apparently it's a rolling contract. In that case, he doesn't need to be offered any extension if it's a rolling arrangement. If there was still a chance of a takeover, then and Bruce was performing to the best of his ability, which means we're not flirting with relegation, we're in and around that top 10, 12 mark for most of the season, I think you would be daft to throw the club into turmoil by getting rid of him and bringing in another manager. I think if the takeover is over and Mike Ashley decides that he's going to stay for the foreseeable future, then I would just judge it season by season. I really would. Knee-jerk reactions, that's what Sunderland did. And look where they ended up. Sacking managers, time and time again. And they had some big names. I'm not saying they had great managers, but they had some big names. And it leads to problems in the dressing room with players. It leads to, probably wouldn't be the case in our case, but it leads to various managers bringing in various players. And you end up with an amalgamation of players who were signed by X, Y, and Z managers, and it just becomes a mess. And these players don't have any connection with each other, don't have any connection with the club, don't really have any affiliation with the club of the area. And as I saw with Sunderland, they dropped down into third division, the old third division. So it's a tough one, that Bede. It's a good question. I wouldn't give him a 5-year contract. I would just stick with what we've got at the moment. Holly?
Yeah, I wouldn't be giving him any new contract till the season ended. I think see how he's performed at the season. Certainly not now. 3 to 5 years, you'd probably feel like banging your head off the wall, to be honest, because that's just like, that would fill people with the idea that there's no hope and we are stuck with Ashley and the current kind of situation that we're in for a far longer period of time than we want to be. If it came to the end of the season, we're still in limbo with takeover stuff, which, let's be honest, is probably quite probable. Then a year's extension, maybe, but not 3 years plus. That would be just a bad move. And I think then you'd see fans getting more and more frustrated, walking away from St James's Park, and, the circus would just kind of carry on.
Yeah. Thomas says, all right, Steve, if Mike Ashley went to the food bank and held the food bank bucket, would you like him more? Well, look, I would take my hat off to him for doing it. He would be a brave man, I guess, under the current climate. But, look, Steve Bruce did it, and he didn't get any stick. I guarantee that Mike Ashley would still get asked for selfies by various people if he went there. I think there would be a few people going over to have a chat with him. But if Mike Ashley did it, it's good PR again. But as I say, I can't see that happening. He very rarely comes to the games. Ryan Sweeney says, it's just Bruce's attitude towards us that makes me so angry. I think we could get him replaced. I know what you mean. Lily says, it was nice to meet you the other day to Spenny. She's having a chat with him. And she did say that earlier to us as well. Yeah, it was nice to meet you, Lily. John Brown says, well, Steve, some of us have been saying this since Bruce arrived. He wasn't our choice, but he's our manager, and us mere mortals can do nothing about it. So people sharing the sentiment. Kenny says, agree, you have to give your team 100% support. ASM loved the shout as he can on the pitch. So yeah, it was a lot of positives to come out of the game at the weekend. And as I say, at half time, I mean, me and Holly and her dad and a few of the other fans who we spoke to were all saying exactly the same. Wasn't a great first half, and we weren't exactly endeared to what was going on, but the second half changed everything. So yeah, it was a better second half. Like we've all said, pre-season is pre-season. The big game is at the weekend, and let's judge Steve Bruce and the players on that. Keith Roll says, evening, Stephen Ollie, it was great to hear your views along with Supermac pre-match at the Dog and Parrot on Saturday. I won't be there this week. I'm missing the game. The 5th game I've missed since 1984 because I booked a trip to Abbey Road. So I'm walking across that infamous zebra crossing while the lads are walking out onto the pitch exactly at that time. 2 o'clock. So I will be down there, but I will be thinking of you all. And the Dog and Parrot is still on this week. Joe Allen, another former Newcastle United number 9, will be talking to Supermac. Pre-match 12:45, but the doors will be open from 12 at the Dog and Parrot. Get yourself along. I'm sure Holly and a few of the others will be down there to see Supermac and get his views on the season ahead. Colin Wilson says, everyone should get behind the team and see how it goes. The last thing the team wants is negativity from the fans. And David Spillett says, Steve, what's changed your mind with you now thinking that the takeover is dead? You need to watch the show's previous, really. I don't want to take up too much time with this, but it's just my gut instinct now, David. It really is. I can't see this takeover going ahead. I speak to the buyer side on a regular basis. I've got good connection with NCSL and Keith, of course, and he speaks to the seller side. It's not dead in the water from their perspective. don't think it's going to go ahead. My gut instinct, and I'm allowed to change my mind, just like everybody else is. So that is the answer to that question. Sorry, I can't be any more clearer than that. Big shout out to our sponsors. As always, Spider VPN. Google Spider VPN comes up at the top of your Google search. Protect your computer, protect your passwords, protect your photographs, protect everything on your computer with the lads at Spider VPN. Google them now, and they will give you a decent price for your VPN service. Also, a big shout out to skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website is www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay as you go waste collection. Also, a big shout out to our long-term sponsors, qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. Good evening to John. I've seen him in the chat there tonight. And big shout out to John at Jab Signature as well, another long-term sponsor who makes all of our flyers. We've also got two other main sponsors this month, and it is a big shout out to Darren Baldwin Funerals, the independent funeral director. You can find him on 304 Old Durham Road in Gateshead. Give him a call on 0191 478 2730. Email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Their website is www.darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. They do local direct cremations from £1,495. We've also got L&G Family Funeral Directors on board, 0191 389 7245. A big thank you to them as well for giving us the support. I am doing a little bit extra tonight as well. I'm joined by Ben Spann just after 7 o'clock tonight. Change Your Life, Put Down Your Knife campaigner. Will be coming on telling us a little bit about his life, and we will be talking about his campaign. Ben is a cracking guy, and I have supported his campaign on more than one occasion. So big shout out to him, and he will be on a separate show, separate broadcast around about 7:05. Keith Rose says it was great to be back at St James's Park and back in the Gallagher for the first time in ages on Saturday. What was it like being back in the ground, Holly? We've been on the road during pre-season, but 20-odd thousand there. It was 10,000 more than we were surrounded by the Sheffield United game. How did it feel to you?
It's nice to be back, of course. You missed it throughout lockdown, but it just reminds us of how I prefer to be on the road, to be honest, because St James's Park for years now has been very just kind of dull. Like, even when we score, there's an initial buzz, but then it dies down really, really fast. There's that one section in the Gallagher East corner that does make some noise, but apart from that, it's just really, really quiet. Because I think the passion and the atmosphere has just been really killed off at St James's Park because of the standard of football that's been played there for so long now. So for me personally, I've always kind of preferred aways for years now, still do, but it is nice to be back just because of how long it's been, and it'll be great to see a full crowd hopefully this weekend.
Yeah, Roger's saying it was West Ham might have offered more money for Willock. I can't see that, mate. The deal was, it's done between the clubs. It's personal now between the club and Willock. If Willock scores the next game, does that follow on from last season and equal Shearer's record? It will do, because it's the amount of games in a row. It doesn't just stop at the end of the season is my answer to that. Jimmy says, do you think we'll get 2 loan deals, or will it be Willock's job done? What's your gut instinct on that, Holly?
I think we will get a couple of loans.
Okay, Paul Foster says, also getting on at Ashley will just make him more of a monster than he already is, and be vile financially and keep the club for 5 more years out of spite. Possibly you can't put anything past Ashley. William says, will you be in the Dog and Parrot on Sunday? Not me personally, but Supermac and Joe Allen will be doing the talking on Sunday. So yes, it will be going ahead. Just get there for around about 12. The show starts about 12:45. If you want to have a crack with Malcolm and Joe before they get on and get a photograph or whatever, then that's the time to do it. Simon Cox was just great being back in my normal seat on Saturday, far better than level 7 against Sheffield. Roll on Sunday. Kenny's also saying there's a lot of pressure on Willock, but they haven't really given Joe Linton stick, and he's been very poor. I haven't seen a great deal of Joe Linton. Of course, he had that run out of York, went off with a thigh injury, was missing for a couple, was back. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what formation he plays, Holly. What's your mindset? I think we all know Woodman in goal and Wilson up front. What's your views after seeing some of the friendlies this pre-season? What kind of lineup do you think he's going to go for?
It's really hard to say with Steve Bruce because whatever you think he'll do, he usually doesn't do that. But I think defence, I think it'll be pretty much similar to last season. I think you'll probably see Kraft and right back. Left back, Lewis might get a chance. I know he didn't have much of a chance last season, but I think he might come in maybe. Centre back will probably swap about. Probably Lascelles will come back in, obviously being captain, Fernandez, and then you'll probably see like maybe a Paul Dummett or someone like that. I don't think Shaw will get much of a chance, to be honest, even though he has signed that extension. Midfield, for Sunday, I'd probably say Hayden and Shelby. Of course, that's kind of, probably not the best midfield, but if Shelby plays like he did last time, then I think there's a good chance for that. And then you'll see St. Maximin, of course. As you might, and to be honest, I'd drop Almiron, and I think you might see Joe Linton on that side because, yes, he's not the best player, but I still think he does do better than some players we do have. He can hold up the ball well, and then probably Wilson up top, although I would really like to see Gale given a chance, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't see Gale getting a chance. I think Gale will be there on the bench in case Wilson gets injured. What about Fraser? Would you give Fraser a chance this season?
I think he does deserve a chance. I don't think he'll start. I think he might come on off the bench in the second half, but he's not my favourite player. I think he's done okay in the past few games when we have seen him, so I'd love to see him do well. I don't think he has synced up that well with Wilson because I know that was kind of the initial idea, but I don't think he has done, to be honest. Given a chance, definitely, but I can't see him starting this weekend.
Adam Armstrong off to Southampton. Obviously, we've got a 40% sell-on in the profit on that transfer, which means we, if the fee is correct, could get around about 5 million. Can you see that going into some kind of kitty? Maybe it's Mike Ashley's beer money.
Yeah, or some more Sports Direct signs. That'll be about it.
Yeah, again in the ground, Castoria, new sponsor for the shirt, and Mike Ashley's signs all over the place. Unbelievable, really. That's all I could see on Saturday anyway. Stephen Kennedy says, Sean Longstaff still giving the ball away in stupid positions. When will he learn, or is he beyond that now? I did notice that. I felt a bit sorry for him. Again, he seemed to have a little altercation with Bruce as well during the game. I mean, look, he gave him a start, but yeah, it's... I don't know. It just doesn't seem right. The chemistry doesn't seem right between him and Bruce. He doesn't seem to fit into that team. I've got to agree with Holly. I think it'll be Hayden and Shelby. As much as it pains me to say that, I think Shelby will start. I think the decision lies with who he plays with Wilson. I think ASM plays as well. Richie is always the first name on my team sheet. I've got to agree as well. I think Kraft is going to be a starter. Going to be interesting. I mean, I'll cover it later in the week. I'm going to have to sit down and write my team down. I think, and when we do the Fab Four on Friday, I'll have to pick it. But it'll be interesting. It'll certainly be interesting. And Holly's just said what I was thinking. Whatever you think Bruce is going to do, he always does the complete bloody opposite. So. It's the way of the world. That's the way it is. And I didn't think he gave much away in the game against Norwich, and West Ham will be guessing as well. We're guessing, West Ham will be guessing, which isn't a bad thing. And our track record against West Ham last season was pretty good. So Darren Cowan says Tammy Abraham will be available. If he was available, it'd be fantastic if we could get him on loan. Of course, Tammy Abraham was wanted under Rafa. But unfortunately didn't end up at the club. So Jano says Almiron is coming back from injury. So, obviously got to give him a bit of time, which is true. Paul Kinson says Mick Lowe's midfield three was John Joe, Hayden and Willock. To be fair, pretty good in my opinion, which it is, Holly, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But yet again, Shelby's too inconsistent. You can't really rely on him. And Hayden, he's good defensively, but he's not the most exciting player to watch.
Yeah. Paul Rocket says, if we're lucky with injuries, unlike last season, realistically, where do you think we can finish? Mick Lowe's reckoned 12th, I think he said. For me, it really just depends on injuries, as you've said, Paul. Injuries and suspensions. As long as nobody else goes, and if we're lucky with injuries and suspensions, I can see a similar place finish. 12th place. I don't think we'll be relegated. What I saw of Norwich, again, we don't know how close that is to their starting lineup. Norwich are going to struggle again this season. Haven't got goals in the team and leak goals as well. So, me personally, I think if we have a good run with injuries and suspensions, 12's possible. It's going to be between 12th and 16th, isn't it? If we struggle, will we be in a relegation position at any point, or will we be down in that bottom three? Probably. We'll probably be in and around there with our heads looking back, hoping for the best. But I think we'll have enough to stay up this season. That's my prediction. Holly?
Yeah, I said 12th to 14th, so average that off probably about 13th. I think just the same as we finish kind of every year. I don't think we'll go down. I think there might be a bit of a panic around the Christmas period because I think that's when we'll be in and around the relegation zone. But come the end of the season, I think we'll pull ourselves out of it.
Kenny says Woodman looked sharp all game. It's great to see he stepped up. This can only be good for the club. John says when Dubravka is back fit, do you think he'll push Woodman straight out as he did more or less with Darlow last season? Look, that was a good test for Woodman at the weekend. And I said yesterday on the show with Mick Lowes, the sign of a good goalkeeper is when he's had nothing to do and then is called into action. And Woodman pulled off an absolutely brilliant save to stop Norwich getting a goal back. And the back three looked fairly confident in Woodman. So for me, I'm not as concerned as I probably was a few weeks back when I watched Woodman play. But answering your question, John, I think Dubravka is still number one at the club. And I do think once Dubravka is fully fit, Dubravka will push Woodman straight back out. And Woodman may well find himself in the number 2 position, but I still think Dubravka is a number 1 keeper. Holly?
Yep, same. I think Dubravka will come straight back into the side, as he should. He's my favourite keeper at the club. I still don't think Woodman's better than Darlow, in my opinion. Of course, I'll want to see him a bit more than I have because we have seen more of Darlow than Woodman in recent times. But to be honest, I don't think he's going to stay at the club because we've got so many good goalkeepers. I can't see all 3 staying on.
Okay, arguing on Twitter, mouth of the time and transfer news. Yeah, Sean, I've seen some of that today. It does make us laugh. Tom Dixon says, what's your thoughts on Messi going to PSG? They're going to be the team to watch this season. Yeah, I did see the money is ludicrous, isn't it, that they're talking about? I mean, he's been offered a 2-year deal there, and I think it's something like £25 million in wages for 2 years, Holly.
It is crazy. It really is crazy. But I think that's what you'd expect when he's going on a free, want big wages. I think he'll do well then. I think PSG's a good move for him. Of course, he was probably getting bored at his old team, so it's a new challenge for him in a different league. Yeah,
Keith says, do you think Woodman will start on Sunday? Yes, from me.
Yeah, I think he'll start.
Sutty says, was well done, Holly, arranging the protest in London. What do you think about the comments made on Al-Walid's show about doing more protests?
I didn't get a chance to watch Al-Walid's show, but doing more protests, I think maybe when the time comes, depending on what happens, it could be something that we might want to do. It really just depends kind of what happens in the cat case and the answers we get later down the line. But at the moment, I don't think it's the right time to do anything else.
Yeah, to be honest, I think, Keith, as always, spoke well. It was nice to hear a bit of positivity from Keith after I depressed him on Friday's show. But yeah, it was great. And Al-Walid's show is fantastic. If you haven't watched it, give it a watch. Which striker would you like us to go for, Holly?
As a backup, I think there's a few names, probably none that we get. Of course, I always said Dan Ings. I know he's moved now to a new club, so it wouldn't be him. I always like Troy Deeney. Again, I don't think we get him. And then there is obviously the chance of Rondon there. But to be honest, I don't think we're going to bring a striker in.
Okay, another question for you, Holly. It's a Geordie. What's your opinions on Manquilla, he says?
He's my favourite right back at the club currently. Of course, we do only have Kraft and Manquilla. But he hasn't really played for quite a while, so he's not at the height of his fitness. So I think Kraft will just edge it over Manquilla. But yet again, I think that Yedlin was better than both of them, so I wish we kept him.
Yeah, I mean, it's look, Manquilla for me was great under Rafa. Again, there's some players played better under Rafa than they have under Bruce and vice versa. So it that's football. That's the way it is. Rafa wants James Rodriguez out of Everton and Sean Longstaff to replace him. Wow, he's finally lost the plot, says John Brown. Darren says, how funny was it that Hendrick tweeted Colaccini, did he, to lower his rent? No way, I missed that. Maybe if he put a performance in next season, he might. Is that true?
Yeah, it was on Instagram, no, not Twitter.
All right, okay. Well, I'm putting an allegedly in there because that could be a fake account. Who knows? But if that's the case, that is hilarious. What's happening to Jetro Willems? Richard, I don't know. He's a name that keeps getting bandied around by Newcastle fans. I think most of us would love him to come back. Who knows? Is it a possibility? Would you like to see him back, Holly?
Yes, definitely. I think he did great for us. He's a player that just kind of totally changes up that left-hand side. He worked really well with St. Maximin on the left as well. So I'd love to see him come back, but I don't think he will. To be honest, I think there's more going on than that meets the eye. I think there's maybe been some type of disagreement or something, because I think if the club was sensible, there would have been straight in from when he was on a free.
Okay, Simon says, do we try another midfielder or two on loan, Maitland, Niles or Barkley, and then a forward and a centre-half? You finish off by saying you're asking too much, Simon. I think you've answered your own question there, mate. It would be nice, but I think maybe you're only going to get that when you're playing Football Manager. Gary Milligan says, some things never change according to Time T's. Newcastle play West Ham on Saturday. Yeah, it's an easy mistake to make, Gary, but you would think that a local TV network would know the difference. It couldn't have been Simon, could it? It wasn't Simon. It must have been a fill-in. It must have been one of the news presenters. Jimmy Ray says, I reckon NUFC's boots will have been cooked more times than a Witherspoon steak. Jimmy, that's a classic, son. It's a classic. But again, that's allegedly. Gary Hannon says, good evening, Holly and Steve. Sorry I'm a bit late. Which, if I am, Steve, is Steve Bruce trying to follow Rafa Benitez from some of the rumours like Rondon for a free player? Gary, I don't know where this has come from. I don't think Rondon is coming to Newcastle at all. So I would ignore that. And, Bruce, again, has very little to do with transfers, I would say, in my honest opinion. We have recruitment, a recruitment panel. We have scouts. Lee Charnley obviously does the contracts, but everything has to get run past Justin Barnes. And, of course, Justin Barnes has to go to our almighty leader, Mike Ashley, to loosen the purse strings. So it's like a game of dominoes to get any money out of this club. And let's just hope that £25 million gets released for Willock and we get that signing through the door. Because everyone's very excited about it. But at the moment, till we see him on the pitch holding the shirt, I think we need to just take a deep breath and hope for the best on that one. Mike Stewart says, I think we won't be too bad if Bruce starts the season with the same positive mindset from the end of last season and not the negative one we started with. The team is not as bad as everyone thinks. What do you think about that, Holly?
I think that it is important that we try and go in with some positivity. You don't want to see the type of comments that Bruce has made in the past where he's like, oh, well, we're just Newcastle, or it's obvious we're going to be in around the relegation. It's important that we go into the new season and think we need to try and do the best that we can and nothing's out of your possibility. That's the type of confidence you've got to have.
Dave Harrison says, Steve, will you give Steve Bruce 10 games like you did with Joe Linton? Yeah, I probably will, yeah, because I think 10 games is more than enough. And I think it's fair to say that we'll have a good idea of what kind of season we're going to have after 10 games. But, Rafa used to start off badly, didn't he? And then, always have a good end of the season. But yeah, look, for me, you can't start having a pop at Steve Bruce until 10 games have gone by. So yes, I would say that is probably more than enough. Jimmy doesn't agree. He says it's like, sorry dudes, but giving Bruce a clean slate is a bit like criticising Peter Sutcliffe for having 3 points on his licence. You're on fire tonight, Jimmy. You should be on stage at the stand with some of these guys. Aaron Hunter says, did you see the story about PIF buying 75% to get the takeover through? Yeah, I saw that, Holly. I mean, again, there's been lots of stuff flying around the internet about what Newcastle should do to get this takeover through, but I don't see anything other than, if the only way the takeover is going to go through, if it goes through on the terms of the PCP, the Rubens and PIF want, and, I just don't see any manoeuvring in that direction. What's your gut feeling on that?
I don't think it'll happen. I think they're settled for the 80%. That's what they want, and they've tried to get that for so long now. I don't think they'll be kind of messing on with different kind of shares at this point in the season. And to be honest, I don't think it would really help the takeover go through if they dropped to 75%. I don't think it would make a difference.
Okay, Holly and Steve, which manager will you be cheering when Newcastle play Everton?
Well, neither. Neither, that's the honest truth. I'll be cheering the players, but the managers, you know what it is, I'm not looking forward to playing Everton whatsoever, and I really hope we do beat them. But I want Rafa to do well, just not when we're playing us.
Yeah, I'm just laughing because we've got a great troll in the chat, and because I've been going down a little bit slower than most because we get so many comments on a Monday. People always want to chat with me and Holly. I've just found Scott M and Julie's comments, so good to see you, Scott M. You've had a good run. Probably this was his best one. Peter Beardsley's just saying to be Sunderland manager. Breaking news in the last few minutes. Peter Beardsley would never go to Sunderland to be manager. I will put my money on that and say that he would never do that. But also, Scott, let's not forget New Year's Day, 1985. Peter Beardsley hat-trick. Newcastle 3, Sunderland 1. And he missed a penalty. So I'll send you on your way. Block you from the chat on that one, Scott. But thanks for watching. John Ditchy says, rinse and repeat season, I think. But we will finish at least 15th come May. Doug says, if we start the season with a squad we finished with last season, we should do okay with a bit of luck. That's what happens when you eat fish fingers and waffles, says Colin Wilson. I'm not sure whether that's a dig at Scott, but he's gone now, mate. Alan Thompson, our run-in, Holly. Steve is horrible. As long as we have 90 points with 5 games to go, I will feel safe. 90 points? Alan, I'll have something that you're taking, mate. Dear me, 90 points. I'd love that. We'll be up there with Man City, Liverpool, and who else? You know what I mean? Be interesting to see. Darren Cowan says, this is what happens when you get Nasser Al-Khelafi, who is on the committee of UEFA, CEO of PSG and BN Sports. The corruption is plain to see. Do you think there will be any kids coming through this season, says Doug? Holly, I mean, we've talked about Kel Watts, haven't we, already? Tonight. I mean, he's obviously gone out now on a loan. I think he'll stick with the first team. I don't think he'll bring any kids through.
I don't, unless we do have a massive injury crisis at some point, then you might see some given a run out. But the ones that I have seen haven't really impressed. I don't think the youth players that we do have are anything special at the moment.
Paul Oxley says, I can't see Willems coming back. We've got Lewis, Ritchie and Dummett. Fair point. Top blocking, Steve, says Colin. Yeah, I'll give him a good run and then I'll give him a good bye. Not many people get a good bye. I usually just block them. But yeah, that was interesting. Suddy says, who do you think will be the bottom 3 come the end of the season? I've got to be honest. I personally feel Norwich will be down there, probably bottom. I don't think Norwich are going to turn things around. I think Brentford and Watford will struggle as well. It could be the 3 promoted teams. It could literally be. I mean, when you look at the other teams that struggled last season and pulled themselves away from the bottom, I just think the teams that are coming up are going to struggle. I don't know what you think, Holly.
Yeah, that's what I said as well. I said it on Saturday. I think it'll be those 3 that'll go down. I think Burnley and Brighton will probably be in and around there as well. But I think the bottom 3 is got a good chance that they'll be the 3 promoted teams.
Tom Lynch says, if PIF dropped to 75%, that would mean they wouldn't have to go through the owners and directors test. I think that's the reason for the story. Again, I don't believe that, Tom. I don't believe that. I think the Delaware thing has done the rounds as well. People saying if it was a Delaware takeover, i.e. Crystal Palace, people don't know who owned Crystal Palace. I don't know enough about takeovers. Again, this is where Keith is very handy. Steve Hastie's knowledge on this is second to none as well. Let's see how this pans out. It's good topics for conversation on the Fab Four on Friday. But I don't believe that would be the case. I think owners and directors tests have to be obliged with the Premier League and especially with this takeover. Let's face it, they don't want it to go through. They'll find a way of making us take an owners and directors test, even if the percentages drop, wouldn't they? Bede says, do you think our back line is ageing and in desperate need of a younger centre-half with a bit of pace? What's your thoughts, Holly?
I 100% agree. That's something that I've certainly picked up on. I think the defence was pretty much one of the best in the league outside the top 6 teams a couple of years ago. But now that they're aging, you're really just seeing that they're not as good as they used to be and they do struggle at times. Lascelles, I don't think that he's particularly brilliant. I think Fernandez is still good, but he's lacking a little bit. And we do need some youth and some freshness in the defence. I'd love to see us sign a defender. I don't think we will. I think in the next couple of years, Callum Watts could be a possibility to come into the side. But certainly now we've pretty much got the same defence as we had going back to when we first came up from the Championship. So it is getting old.
Alan Thompson thinks Burnley, for some reason, will be down there with Norwich and Watford.
Yeah, I said Burnley and Brighton. I think them two will struggle.
Yeah, I think as well. I mean, Burnley always seem to pull it out of the bag. They've got a good manager. Southampton down for me this year, says Mad Mag Mark. Another team that was struggling. Darren reckons Norwich, Brentford and Crystal Palace. It's a good shout with Palace. Tim Cairns agrees as well. I mean, lost the manager. Obviously, he moved on and retired. New guy in. Not tried and tested, is he? And obviously a few players gone as well. Palace could be a good shout.
Yeah, it could be, and I think they've had a little bit of financial trouble as well, which will be making things more difficult for them. So there will be a few teams that's in and around it, and that can only be a good thing for us because that means we finish high up the league.
Yeah, Paul Oxley's asking when Lee Clark's coming on the show. Very soon. Got to try and sort out a couple of events, mate. Obviously, I've managed to sort the Christmas party out, which a lot of people have bought tickets to, and we're going to be able to sell more tickets for that as well. So I'm busy this week. Kids are on holiday. I've got a couple of days out today and tomorrow. Wednesday, Thursday, I'll be sorting things out. The talking at the Town Theatre is going ahead, but obviously there has to be a change of personnel on that one because of COVID. Some people live abroad, and it's a bit of a nightmare. So I will have a bit more time to sort that out at the end of the week, and I'm hoping maybe to get Clarky on early next week. So I will keep you posted on that. But Paul, he is definitely coming on. Watch this space. Life Goal says, whose team played the dullest football, worst to best? Dalglish, Rafa, Bruce, Allardyce. Okay, worst to best. Right, worst for me, Allardyce was the worst, followed by Dalglish, then Rafa, then Brucey, then Rafa. So I would have Rafa as the better football because he was the manager who I liked. Okay, I've got you. So Allardyce was the worst. You've missed McLaren out. Allardyce was the worst. Then Dalglish, then Brucey, then Rafa. That would be my order. What about you, Holly?
I'll go Allardyce, then Bruce, then Dalglish, then Rafa.
Right, okay. You see, for me, I was a Dalglish fan, and I felt hard done by for him because he got a raw end of the deal. They sold Ferdinand, Shearer got injured, was out for the best part of the season, and John Dahl Thomason had to play up front. Then we brought in Rushy and Barnes, who were way past their best. We had Stuart Pearce, Rushy and Barnes, who in their prime would have been great, but we got them when they were ready for the knackers yard. And that really affected Dalglish. I'd love to have seen Dalglish have that season with Shearer. I think we would have been like Blackburn, and I think we would have won a trophy. And it wouldn't have been the greatest football following on from KK's entertainers, but Dalglish is not he wasn't liked by the supporters, sadly. Rafa, defensive, but never backed. If he'd been backed financially, I'd love to have seen him. And Bruce is what he is, but I wouldn't have had Rafa and Bruce in the same kind of mold. Allardyce was awful, absolutely awful, and McLaren terrible. Kinnear, again, just because maybe he hasn't played as long as other people. But great question. I love questions like that. But you caught us completely on the hop. There's a couple of questions caught us on the hop tonight. Yeah, I know it says Southampton for me to go down. Ings is gone. Ward Prowse linked with move away. Poor recruitment. Bede says Dalglish signed a lot of poor players. We were called Dad's Army because of the golden oldies. Yes, you're right there. And lots of people, as always, saying great show, which is always very nice. Kenny says that's because McLaren wasn't a manager; he was a puppet. Joe, what about Joe Kinnear? Says Alan Thompson. You're right, mate. You are right. Rachel says, I see you all on Thursday. I'm away for a couple of days. I hope it's somewhere nice, Rachel. Have a nice time. Hope the weather is kind to you. Holly, as always, great hour. Look forward to seeing you next week, and enjoy the game without me on Sunday.
I will do. Hopefully we get a win.
Fingers crossed. Quick prediction, Holly.
3-1 to Newcastle.
3-1 to Newcastle. You heard it here first. Holly, see you next Monday. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking off again.